Hey guys, this is David Chen, and you're on another episode of Pandanomics podcast. And today, when the universe does good, the universe gives back to you as well. I have a very, very special guest, Ms. Domee Shi, who is the head of animation at Pixar. How are you today?
Good. How are you?
So you might know her from a short film that changed my life, that made me cry. And people that know me know I'm a bigger sized man, so it's interesting. And it was called Bow.
Yes.
And from there, you won a giant award last year. Which award was that one?
The Oscar for Best Animated Short.
The freaking Oscar! Awesome. Make us so proud. That is dope. And the best part is the movie meant so much. So I'll tell you how I met you, because I wanted to do this very organically.
Yep.
Once I saw that, I'm sitting here one day and I am somewhere, and my fiance is an American who at that time was blonde. From Taiwan, right? Chinese ethnic. So it was always kind of an issue. We've been dating because of different races. People would not assume that we're dating. They thought I was their bodyguard as opposed to the fiance. And my best friend, Gabe Castro, gives me a call. This whole entire family, they're watching Incredibles 2. And he calls me. And then his daughter's my daughter. She calls me. And then his wife calls me. Say, you gotta check out this movie. It's a short film called Bow. It's a short film called Bow. It's literally about you. Myself, okay, dude, like, is this some sort of stereotypical thing that you guys are throwing at me? Like, there's not a lot of me type stories in Hollywood in the world, especially, the Asian American story. There's just none of it. And I was like, what are you talking about? And then, I kid you not, I probably got 60 to 70 text messages throughout that week from different friends that are watching the movie and saying this was my life. So the first thing I did was I tried to find it online, and I couldn't find it online because you guys are having it. So I run to the movie theater, and I put it on with my fiance, and I said, everyone says that this movie's a short film about us. I wanted to watch Incredibles. I love Incredibles, but I went there to see your film, just so you know. And I'm sitting there, and I'm watching this film. I'm 6'4", 270, and I start bawling. I'm 6 years old, and I'm crying, and I have all these tears coming out. This grown man in a public theater. And my fiance looks at me, and I was like, that's how impactful this movie was, because it was about the love of family. It was the love of the mother. And Asian parents' way of saying, I'm sorry, or loving you is cooking or cutting fruit, right? It's totally between every Asian out there. And then it touched on, I realized that very moment, how much love my mother had for me and her reasoning of loving me the way she did, because it wasn't the way that we saw in Western culture, where you saw these dads and moms act a certain way, and our friends' parents did, but our parents never acted that way at all, right? And we don't have this conversation, but I know every Asian usually goes through it. And then I look at my fiance, is watching it, and she starts tearing up, and she starts understanding what's going on. And it was so impactful, this movie, that every single time I ran to a family member or friend, I was like, you gotta check this movie out, and I showed it to them. And when it finally came out, we bought, obviously, Incredibles 2, and we have your short film now on Disney. But it meant that much. So then all of a sudden I add you on Instagram, and I'm just following you because I'm like, this person was such an impactful thing, because it said my story and I showed it to my mom, so she kind of understood what was kind of going on. There's always that layer of not talking about things, right?
Totally.
I show my fiance, I show my dad. My dad's like, that would be me, but I got a full set of hair and I don't wear glasses. He's a stud. He's a different animal. And my mom, when she saw it, later on tells me that it got her very emotional, because she understood what that was saying to her. And the meaning, like, why you ate the bow, right? Right? The meaning is, you're mine. I want you forever. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the reason I brought up Asia is I do a lot of business in Asia. And I started seeing you in different newses in China, Taiwan, and other parts of Malaysia, Singapore. And it was the movie. And I was like, man, this person's really made it. Now, this was right before the Crazy Rich Asian, thing was all happening. And so I know people there, but I was, like, I tell you about this right now, if you were physically, like, seeing me right now, you would see these goosebumps coming out of my body. And then I see you pop up, and you do the most amazing thing that a human being could do, which inspired me. You spent your time drawing 3 very beautiful animations to donate. So this person who wins this giant Oscar, who's impacting lives, and I don't know how much you're impacting lives, but you impact my life. And I sit here and I turn around and I see you doing this. And I was upset because the first one, I was trying to buy all three of them. I put the time and the dates, but we have a house in Arizona. So I went to Arizona and it was an hour back. So I missed the bidding on the first one.
Oh no.
Upset. And the second one where I tried to bid it on, I couldn't do it because I missed it again because of the time zone.
Yeah.
Third one is I got. But before I talk about this, tell everybody what the inspiration for that was and the inspiration for the movie.
Right. Yeah. So the inspiration for doing those 3 watercolors was just, you know, like after seeing that horrible video of George Floyd and seeing like this whole movement kind of picking up, you know, just so quickly, just made me feel like I had to do something with the skills and with the limited skills that I have, and the skills that I have is drawing and painting and telling stories visually. And I just, yeah, busted those 3 watercolors out because I just felt like, oh man, I have to do something. And I can't vote because, you know, I'm here on a green card. And the one way I felt like I could make an impact was just to like use my art and, you know, just put it out there just to help, you know, bring attention to this crazy shit that's happening in this country.
Right.
Yeah. And then, you know, I've always kind of just used art as like an outlet for when I'm feeling awful or shitty or emotional or anything. It's always been therapeutic for me. I could always draw my way out of any, you know, any bad situation, I felt like, because it was just one thing on the piece of paper that I could control, you know. And that's kind of how Bao started too. I was a storyboard artist on Inside Out at Pixar for about 2 years, and it was a really great project to be on, but I was getting a little like restless because I'd been working so long on someone else's story. And it was amazing. I really loved working with everybody on the show, but I think I just decided like one day after work in my office, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to make a short film on my own. Like I haven't done that since college. I really miss making art for myself, and I don't know where this is going to go, but I'm just going to do it. And then this image just came into my mind of this like old Chinese lady nuzzling this baby dumpling to death. And that was like one of the first images I drew, and I just kept drawing, and I came up with this like really short story about, you know, this little dumpling that comes to life. And for a really long time, that ending was in the movie of the mom eating the dumpling, because I really wanted to keep that in there, because I was, again, like really inspired by my own mother and she'd always say to me like, oh, Domee, I wish I could put you back in my stomach so I would know exactly where you were at all times. And I'm just like, man, I really want to explore that like deep, like intense Asian mother love through food and through this story. And so after drawing a couple images and writing up like a short like outline of the story, I started pitching it around the studio to like colleagues, just to like I realized that was a way to hold myself accountable to actually making it. Like if I talked about it, I said, I'm totally going to make this short. Like then like I'm holding myself accountable to that, and I'll have to do it. Otherwise there's all these people that are going to be like, whatever happened to that short? And I'm like, oh yeah, I didn't do it. So, and then one of the people I talked to was Pete Docter, who was the director of Inside Out at the time. And he really resonated with the story, which I was really surprised by, because he's like, yeah, like he's like the opposite of me, a very tall, very white American man. But that like gave me confidence, because it made me realize, oh, there's something in here, like something universal and something really unique and cool that I think a lot of people would resonate with. And you know, through his encouragement, I you know, worked on like refining the pitch some more, and then I ended up pitching it to Pixar when they were asking people at the studio for ideas for their next short film. And then it got picked, and then yeah, and then that was pretty crazy, because I was like, oh shit, this is going to be the next Pixar like animated short film. Oh my gosh. And that's when it felt real. But actually, like before I got greenlit, like in that in-between phase, like I was still working on it because I just thought in my head, like I have to make this no matter what. Like even if Pixar rejects it, I'll just make it on my own. You know, like I can animate, I can like find friends to kind of put this together. But it was just like doubly awesome that Pixar was on board with it. But I think you kind of have to have that attitude if you want to be a filmmaker. Like if you want to be a filmmaker, you should already be making stuff already and not be waiting for permission from like a studio or from anybody to give you you know, the resources and stuff. Like these days you can make stuff on your own, you know. So
that's amazing. And that's one thing I think I tell a lot of my audience, and what I like about the guests that I have on is there's a form of a personal relationship that became very organic.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I was pretty nervous to ask you, and I'm never nervous to ask anybody anything. So it means like whatever. And I just remember how nice you were, like just how inspiring you were, because you were one of the very few people that I noticed off the bat as, you know, who's from Hollywood, who's Asian, who really sat there and pushed out your craft and your skill and your voice to help out other people.
Mm-hmm. And
I was so touched by that. And then what you did meant so much to me personally that it didn't matter what the costs were. I was doing everything I possibly could. You know, the first one, and the first one I won, I loved it so much that I took a photo and I had my niece. I sent that to you. Is my niece, and she's like my little pal. So I love her to death, and my sister and I are so close. So that meant everything to me. And then I gave it to my mom, and my mom took a photo of it, and my mom starts getting really watery, and it sits in our house, the fireplace. There's a mantle in the living room, and in the mantle, it's all our trophies with your photo.
Oh, that's amazing!
Right there. And it meant everything to us, because that was a moment for me that this movie, this artwork, that it was a struggle. I'm 40, where me and my mom kind of grew up, always my best friend, but in her own way.
Yeah.
And then I realized at that moment, and she realized at that moment, that it wasn't just me and her.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody
Mm-hmm.
that was Asian. It didn't matter if you're Asian, Canadian, Asian American,
yeah,
even Italian. We're all dealing with these two completely different worlds that we have to find ourselves trying to figure out. And and then I remember reaching out a second time to you and asking if I could buy any more artwork. And you graciously painted this beautiful piece of art, but I want to show everybody how amazing this was. And then you spent so much time doing this. So much detail, like the amount of detail to little bows. So touched by this. And I just remember it. And then you were like, I'm just going to donate to somewhere else. And I was like, this is an amazing human being, because it wasn't about you taking the money because you could have easily done it.
Mm-hmm.
It was about how you wanted to help and add value to this world. And that's what our guests were. And so when you talk about reaching out, it's when I reached out to you and I told you what I did.
Yeah.
And said, hey, I'm a normal human being. You're like, yeah, I would absolutely love to do it. Mm-hmm. And we've had NFL players, NBA players, head of marketing companies, CEOs of companies.
Yeah.
You touched me so much that I was actually nervous. I spoke in front of the president of China and Mexico. Like, it wasn't even.
That's crazy.
But that's how impactful this was. And so, the one thing I want to ask everybody is, when you were sitting there and you're like, I want to tell my own story.
Mm-hmm.
How did you? I know that you held yourself accountable. That's why you told other people, like, if I don't want to do it, I have to, so I don't look bad. And but even to muster that confidence when you're working at such a big company like Pixar, have your own dreams. A lot of people are introverted, so they're afraid to do that. A lot of people, even though they have the skill set, there's that certain level of have to do this to. It's not just me. It's me trying to do a bigger story for everyone in the world to understand. Maybe I can. How did you even get to that point before you were holding people accountable? What was in you that said, you know what, I'm going to do this no matter what?
Oh, man, I guess I got that from my mom. I think, like that stubbornness, and just like, if I have a seed of an idea and I get excited about it, I just lock onto it, and I'm like, I have to finish this. I have to commit and do this no matter what. Yeah, and I think a lot of that has to do with my mom and my dad always being like, okay, like if you want to do something, like you better not quit, and you better like follow through with it until the very end. So like when I told them that I was going to be interested in animation and art, they're like, okay, well, you better be the best at it. And I'm like, okay, I'm scared. But I think for this story, I mean, it's been so long, like at that point, since I made something of my own. Like I mentioned, I was working, for Pixar for a while. And I just felt like if I didn't do it now, I wasn't going to have the time to do it ever. And so I don't know, it was just something that I felt like I had to just put down. And I really wanted to tell this little modern day fairy tale. And I was just really excited about that ending. Like, I think that ending of the mom eating the dumpling was like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like I've never seen that before. And that perfectly encapsulates my relationship with my mother. There's just something in there that I just have to like get out into the world before someone else does it. And so I think that's what kind of drove me to create it. Also, it helped that like, man, like working at Pixar, you're just surrounded by so many talented artists and filmmakers, and everyone else around me was like, they had their Instagram accounts, they were making stuff too, like comics, side projects. So that just helped motivate me and like held my feet against the fire a bit too. And I felt that way in college as well, in animation school. Like my peers, my friends, like we were all kind of pushing and motivating each other. So I don't think I would have been able to, I don't think I would have had the motivation if I was like, say, freelancing by myself, working from home, or, like not in like a collaborative environment. I think that's huge for like helping you like grow and push yourself, like just to be surrounded by people who are like way better than you. So that's kind of how I went over that first hurdle, if that makes sense.
A lot of people we talk to, and I think everyone realizes the significance of your circle and network, right? It doesn't matter how far they are or what you read on social media or who you're interacting with social media, but even your coworkers. There's a certain level where people, when they are motivated and they want to succeed, or they feel accountable and disciplined, that they do what you just did, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't require, no matter where you're from, it doesn't matter what your backgrounds or your issues are. You just wanted to be better and you wanted to tell your story and elevate that. And so for entrepreneurial listeners here and everyone all around the world listens, that just shows again, and even in this industry, that if you want to do it, you can do it. You just have to do it and surround yourself with good people.
Yeah, totally. It's like you can't, it's something I definitely realized in college or just after coming out of college. Like you can't really improve in a vacuum. Like you have to find a community and a circle of people that like can help push you, and like you can learn from them and they can learn from you. And I feel like I've luckily had that at every stage of my life. Like even back in middle school and high school when I was first drawing, like, I mean, I was drawing for like my whole life, but I think I really improved a lot in high school when I found online art communities. Like I joined DeviantArt. I don't know if you know what this like website. It's like super like old school, like early 2000s art community, where I just like started posting like online digital drawings, and I would like get tips and advice from people, and like we'd leave comments on each other's like posts, and like I found that community online. And then through that I found Sheridan College and like the animation program there, and just being in that environment where we're all kind of sitting together, like all of our desks are side by side and we're all like pulling all-nighters, animating and drawing and just like pushing each other and helping each other grow. And then coming to Pixar, it's kind of the same way, like finding that community of like-minded people that are just as nerdy and passionate about stuff as you. Like they just really, that helps you grow so much,
What an important lesson. A giant company like Pixar with record numbers and record things and great artists like yourself, everyone else, there's a sense of community, like you guys said, and you're helping each other growing. And I think I'll tell a lot of people in the business, even a lot of the startups that I'm part of or boards I sit on, if the people around you suck and you're doing this and you're like, oh God, please, I don't want to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
It almost messes the energy and the synergy for everybody and everything.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
and it's when the good, like the energy, I posted on a post ironically yesterday, we talked about this, is energy creates synergy, but it's either negative energy or positive energy. And that's it. But what you did was, even though it was a somewhat competitive environment because everyone still has to do their jobs and have new ideas, you guys still added value and helped each other and made that work. And the end result was you doing this amazing film and winning a magical Oscar, right? The pinnacle of pinnacles on your first film, right?
Yeah.
What amazes me about that is when you're even at that level, when you get to what people would consider to say, oh, that's the peak, how do you continue to inspire yourself? And you seem to be a extremely humble person and not let that get to your head so you're consistently still growing.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, I just keep up with like movies, with film, with Instagram. I just feel like there's so much amazing work out there that comes out every day that is not recognized. And I just feel like I'm constantly learning, and like every single day, I still have a ways to go. Like it's so funny. Like even after finishing Bao, and before like releasing it out into the world, like I told myself like, you know, like this is good, but this is not going to be the best thing that you ever make. Like, and like telling myself that like encourages me to just keep going. Cause I'm like, I can't, like, this can't be my peak. Like I'm like, at the time I was like in my 20s and I was like, yes, this is not going to be the best thing I make. And you just have to like have that attitude because like you have so much life left to live and so much left to learn. Man, yeah, I don't know, like I'm just always in awe of you know, certain filmmakers like Hayao Miyazaki, and just his amazing like vision, and how he's always saying, like, he always has this perfectionist attitude. Like he's always like seeing him being so hard on himself in documentaries where he's like making his films, and I'm just like, oh my god, like he is the grandfather of Japanese animation, and he's just like he's like saying like to his drawings like this is shit, and I'm just it's crazy. But yeah, but it's a balance too. I think I've over the years like learned to, you know, be comfortable with compliments, which whereas before when I was much younger I'd be like, oh no, like if someone would compliment something I did, I'd say like, no, it's shit, da, 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 da. But now I think I have a good balance of like accepting it, being proud of the stuff I've done, but knowing that I have way more ahead of me that I want to do.
I love that. And I think a lot of, you know, I know I can at least speak for our community, Asian American community, which, you know, I'm really big all around, but the humility side of it is because we were told to be that, or else we get in trouble.
Yeah, so, or it's like bad luck or something.
Right, bad luck and shouldn't say before it happens, or all these rules and regulations, right? And then when you leave homeland to go to another country, which becomes your new homeland, I feel like we're more engraved and instilled on culture because they're so afraid we're going to forget it. So now we're like beaten in that this is how it has to be. So I'll go back home to Taiwan. People are like, we don't even celebrate the holiday anymore. What are you talking about? I'm like, Mom, we don't celebrate the holiday anymore. But those are the things that happen. But then in this side of the world, especially now with the way things are with you and your animation, your studios, everything that you have here, what you start to realize and what you start to see is, in addition to that, now you have to put yourself and you have to promote yourself, or else people won't know where you are in film. So you have to receive that compliment, right? And that's what you found when you're trying to do all this. So
totally.
That's amazing. You know, for most people that don't know this, how long did start to finish did it take you to do the film until it came out?
Oh, for Bao? Oh man. Let's see. Well, if you want to just calculate production itself, like from when we started, you know, gathering people and they started working on the show, like 1.5 years to create like 7-8 minutes of animated footage, which is pretty crazy. But I came up with the idea, like I started working on the idea like years before that. So in total, like maybe 2-3 years from the seed being planted in my head to like to the final short being completed, which is pretty crazy. It's so interesting because when I first started on Bao and I first came up with the idea, and then by the time I finished it, I felt like I was a completely different person. Like you change so much in 3 to 4 years. And yeah, it was just, and I was learning as I was making it too. Like, I don't think I started off as like a badass filmmaker. I mean, I don't think I ended as bad as one either, but I just felt like I was learning as I was making it, which is like, man, that's huge too. And that's what maybe that was also something I realized, like, you can't just learn something first and then do it. Like, you learn through doing it. So you just have to do it. You just have to jump in and like be like, okay, it's going to be messy, but you're going to figure it out as you go. Like editing, all that stuff, like cutting to music, like, okay, I'll figure that out as I go through with it. It's so crazy.
No, I love that. I love that honesty. I remember I mentioned to you I was doing that Super Bowl commercial with Vayner for Steve Babcock, and it was the first time I sat in production. I saw that, and I realized there's a quintessential thing that every person in business and life they do, and that's the thing. A lot of people think that you have to prepare from beginning to end, and it has to be perfection before you can even start. But time is wasting. Like you said, you want to get this out before someone else did.
Yeah.
You have a time limit that you have no control over. But what's amazing is when you're doing this film and things happen, like you mentioned the music thing, you're like, we'll figure it out. It's going to work. It's okay. But we got to figure out, keep going there. You didn't overly stress out. You made it work. And the end result was what the end result was.
Yeah.
And I loved hearing about it was how long it took. It was a 3-year project that you said was 7 to 8 minutes.
Yeah.
For a lot of entrepreneurs, young people, they stop before it gets to the 3 or 4 year mark.
Yeah.
They quit. They don't feel like they can do it. They think it's a waste of time. And what you just shared to all our listeners, which I'm greatly appreciative, is the length of time from conception to inception to get where it's at was that long for the end result to be what it was. And most people lose sight of that because they're not focusing on the end goal. They're focused on short-term goals. So that's amazing that you did that as well.
I mean, it was definitely like a huge team effort too. Like, man, it was, I felt so lucky to like have access to these like world star animators, artists, technical wizards. Like it took all of them to be able to make it look as perfect and to make the food look as delicious as possible in the short. So I just felt like I had to be up to par with everyone else on this show. Like everyone else is like bringing their like 1,000%. So, you have to as well.
And what I tell people is like, if you weren't a nice and kind person, they wouldn't have helped you out. That's it, right? Because that's the way it works. Like everyone assumes just because you're in a top role that all the people are going to follow you, but they're not truly following you. They're not going to go to overtime. They're not going to do it unless you do something with them, right?
Yeah, it's like I thought it was really important, and I still think so too. Like as a director, your job is to get your crew excited about the story, is to get them excited about spending 4 years working overtime and going crazy, like looking over shots over and over again until their eyeballs bleed. It's just to get them really, really excited about this story and like make them care so much about it. And so I like my responsibility as a director was like, okay, I have to make sure the story sings that like that this is a story worthy of people putting all the time and effort into, and that the crew will be proud of to work on. And I think just having that attitude, it really helps when you're making a film.
That's amazing. I think a lot of people don't realize in leadership roles like yourself, even if you're not necessarily 1,000% sure, but even when you motivate other people, like you said, it holds you accountable to be motivated, because then you can't act like as if you're not motivated, because then the crew and then we'll figure it out, right? They're like,
yeah, totally. I mean, before I started on Bow, I was a story artist, like working on other people's like films and shows. And I have worked with some directors who are like a little bit more wishy-washy about like they'll hand you some work and they'll be like, oh yeah, like I don't know. And you just hate that feeling because you're like, well, I'm about to, pull some like work until 10 p.m. Like I'm going to be working really hard for the next couple of days on this thing that you are not sure about. So even though like these days, as I'm working on my own film, even if I'm not 100% sure about it, like I'll be honest at first, I'm like, I'm not sure, but like, this is why I'm excited about it. So at the very least, I instill some like confidence in them that I'm excited about it, because that's the worst thing, like being handed like work that your boss is not into. Like that sucks, man.
That's a great leadership tip, you know, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs fail to learn that or forget about that, is that you do have to do that, and it's a skill set that you have to keep yourself accountable. So I appreciate you sharing that with me, because the things that we're trying to do. But I like that. I like that a lot. That's amazing. Now let's talk a little bit more about after this film and the inspiration that you put from there. You're about to put this cultural film short film that has never been done before, right, out in the world. Was there any reservations or concerns or fears of the acceptance of this? Because you hear this all the time in Hollywood. I have a lot of Asian friends who are in the industry, and you hear about this a lot, that there isn't as much acceptance. So this is right before Crazy Rich Asians comes out. So
Yeah.
what was it for you when you were moving into that type of thing?
Oh man. It's so crazy. I don't think I worried so much about what's the word? Like the cultural crossover. Yeah, like that, because I guess I was working on it for so long, and maybe I was in a bubble of like, you know, my colleagues and friends and stuff, but I was more just like hoping that the twist at the end was gonna like resonate with people. I think I was more worried about the story twist rather than the whole cultural thing. And I don't know, I think I also had this confidence of like, okay, this is a universal story told with a culturally specific paintbrush, but it's universal. It's about, you know, a mother learning to let go of her little dumpling son. And I feel like everybody from all walks of life, all over the world, can identify with that. You could either, like you can identify with it as like the kid being smothered, or the parent who is doing the smothering, or even like the like outsider, like girlfriend, boyfriend.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like being like introduced into this awkward situation. So I felt like I felt confident in that, like this is gonna resonate with people. Like maybe naively, because I, you know, the whole cultural thing like went over my head, because that's what I grew up with and that's what I see every day. So I'm like, this is fine, like this is normal. Except for like small instances on the production that were really funny, where like one time we got a note from the sets department of like, why is there toilet paper on the coffee table? Is that a mistake? And then like I had to be like, no, it's not. And here's why. Huh? What?
That's our version of napkins.
I know. I was like, it's just a practical, you know, like you see this a lot in a lot of Asian families. It was really funny. And like they were totally cool about it. They were like, oh, that's awesome. Okay, cool. But it was really funny having to like teach the crew about that stuff. But yeah, I don't think I had any fears about that. Also, I mean, it's like I felt like I didn't have the like financial pressures of a feature film. I mean, like animated shorts at Pixar are not really like supposed to make a ton of money. They're supposed to be almost like training grounds for future directors, and like a way to test out new technology and new software. And so in that sense, I was like, phew, this will be piggybacking off of Incredibles 2. Incredibles 2 can make all the money. Like this can just be the quirky, weird indie short that appears before it. So I had that in mind as well. Yeah. And then, you know, also just, I felt like people were ready to see something different, you know? So I was excited about showing it to the world.
That's amazing. So it comes out, and people start talking about it, and now you're breaking off a little bit different from your personality. Like everyone's starting to know you. Your Instagram was blowing up. People were hitting you up. How did you handle that? Like, what was your reaction when people started hitting you up?
I ran from it at first. I think I just didn't really touch my social media that much because I kind of avoided online reviews too. I was a little bit scared at first of like what the overall response would be. I think I was fine with just letting it go out into the world, but I felt ooh, like I was a little like apprehensive of like keeping track of all of the comments on Twitter or like Instagram and stuff, because the internet can be scary and mean, and I didn't know. And I was just like, well, we'll just set your baby out in the world and see how it's received. But I don't want to by that time I had started working on my next project, which is a feature film with Pixar too. So I was kind of like, okay, yes, this is good. Now I'm going to work on this now, and then see how everyone reacts to Bao. But by then, it's almost like I had like my mind had moved on, so I wasn't too caught up in the response. But it was so like when people started like a lot of like Asian Americans, Asian people from all over the world started messaging me personally, and then I got like letters, like physical letters from people. Like that was amazing, like seeing the impact of the short on them. Like that was so cool. And that made everything like worth it. It was just really cool to see that and to see how much it meant to so many people. I was like, I'm just a nerdy kid that just like drawing cute stuff, and it was so crazy how people like how that impacted people.
Your voice has that, your movie has that much of a meaningful impact. And so all of a sudden you're sitting here, and I can only tell you this from watching TV shows, I'm not sure this is it, but then all of a sudden you hear that you might be getting a nomination. Where were you at? What was going through your mind?
Oh man, I mean, again, I'm always like hoping for the best but expecting the worst. So I wasn't even like in the back of my head, I was like, it would be cool, but I don't know if I'm gonna get it. Like I like the Oscars for like a couple of years like didn't nominate Disney shorts or Pixar shorts for a while, and that's fine too. So I slept through the ceremony, like when they were announcing all the nominees. Like I think it was at like 5 a.m. in the morning or something, and then I slept through it, and then I woke up, and then my phone was blowing up with texts and just like people be like, congratulations, oh my god, and I was like, holy shit. And that still didn't hit me. And then Oscar week came around, and then that was so insane. That was just like stepping into the crazy world of Hollywood, and that was so nuts. And then yeah, it was just it was crazy. I like talk about it with my producer at the time, Becky Niemenkov, when we're just saying like, this is like, it's the glittery cherry on top of a amazing experience of getting to share this personal story with the world. Like it shouldn't be what filmmakers strive for, because at the end of the day, it's like a material, statue or whatever that like a group of like a small group of people decide that you are worthy of it. But I think for representation for a lot of like minority groups, for Asians, for women, for Black artists and filmmakers, I think that's huge, because it just shows that the world and that like globally, that we are accepting and embracing this new like normal and this new definition of like what a universal story is. So like in that sense, like that was pretty surreal.
I love
really
it.
Cool.
So you're sweeping through, you're going from there. You were part of other nominations, right? Other films, right? You did The Incredibles, you did Good Kid Dinosaur, you did Inside Out, some of the other things that you've done. You're about to do this big film. So all of a sudden, Day sits here, and it's Oscar it's Oscar night, right?
Yeah.
Going from there, what's running through your head as what was the oh my god, this might happen moment, or did that moment even come?
Oh man, I think I was just denying it up until when Aquafina says "bow" on the stage. Like I think up until that point, I was like it could go in any direction, because for some of the categories, like you kind of know which films are gonna win. Usually the ones that had the most buzz. But I think for animation, and especially animated shorts, like historically, like Pixar's won some, Disney's won some, but a lot of the time some indie films have won. Some like indie shorts have won too. So it was like and all of my nominees were freaking like amazingly talented, and they were all super nice, and I think it could have gone to like any of us. But it was, yeah, so I was like denying it up until that moment. And then I think after our name, after Bao was called and then me and Becky went up, like I was on autopilot the whole time. I don't even think I was functioning properly. And and this is so funny. And like we were told to practice our acceptance speeches beforehand, because that's what they tell all the nominees, so that you don't freeze up. And I found it really, like, at first I was like, this is stupid. Like, this is so silly that I've been practicing it in front of a mirror and everything like that. But it actually really helped in the moment, because I had practiced it so much, it was on autopilot and it just came out. And I just wanted to say something that would help inspire, other nerdy girls that were like me, like not that long ago. Yeah, it was nuts. It meant, it means everything and nothing at the same time. It's just so crazy.
I think it's so humbling in the way that you're saying this. You win this, and it's cool because Awkwafina is there, up and coming Asian star. So it's almost like a double meaning. Because I remember watching it, I was like, "Holy cow! Like, this is it!" Like, I'm screaming like, "Yeah!" like I'm like me. I was like, "Yeah!" Like this. I was like Super Bowl winning, right?
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, like, the impact and the inspiration that you did, even for a guy like myself, my background, things that I've done, it inspired me, and I think many, many other people who are like us or have similar stories like that, to say that we can keep doing this in any other industry, in film or any other industry in general, and that we can make a meaningful impact that will really be shown for generations down in.
Mm-hmm.
I'm showing my mom, when I have kids, I'll be showing my children. But it was meaningful because in that 7 minutes, you told a story that for 40 years I struggled with.
Yeah.
And that was the beauty of this story. For 40 years, I struggled with it. And
Mm-hmm.
I saw it, I was like this is me. And I remember when I sent you the photo, you're like, wow, there's a lot of similarities.
Yeah.
Can't go Chen here, but everything else might be fun. But that's how meaningful it was, and that was the impact that you made. So now your film, I know you're doing another film. I don't know what you can say about it, what you can't say about it. If you can't say anything, that's okay. But from there, because you took a leap of faith,
Mm-hmm.
followed your dreams, your passion, you stuck with it, you make this impactful movie, short film, that now wins this Oscar. And because of the belief in yourself and you being a nice person with everyone else around you that helped you push this through as a whole team, now you're doing, your own feature film. Like, wow, like, talk about believing in yourself and getting to where you always want to do. But it had to take you to actually believe in yourself and maintain yourself to get to the part that you always wanted to get to. And that's what makes it up, right? So that's where you're at right now. Do you have an idea when the film's coming out? I know Coach. Can you even say the film or what?
I know. Unfortunately, all I can say is I'm directing a feature film at Pixar, and it will come out hopefully in a couple of years. But that's what I've been working on ever since Bao came out. So.
That's amazing. I can't wait to personally watch it, and I'm glad and I'm like super dope that you're doing that. And that's another thing. The one last question I want to ask, because I want to mindful of your time, is what piece of advice can you give inspiring entrepreneurs, filmmakers, people like that in your industry to get to a level of where you're at? Or what a couple pieces of advice did you give them?
A couple pieces of advice. Probably just this stuff I talked about before, like you can't succeed in a vacuum. Surround yourself with people, with like-minded, passionate, talented, hungry people to like help push yourself and inspire yourself with. Keep learning every day. Keep like if you're an aspiring filmmaker, like watch films like constantly. Like you can always be learning, like not just from like the old classics too, but like from new stuff as well. Just keep watching stuff. And yeah, if you're an aspiring filmmaker, like you should, and you're not making a film right now, like you should be, or you should be starting to, like, you should, like, you have a computer, everyone has an iPhone or a computer or like a word processor, like you should be writing or making stuff, if that's truly what you want to do, because that's the only way to get better at filmmaking, or anything, is just by doing it, not just by reading about it or watching other people do it. I think you just learn so much from doing it yourself. So just keep making stuff, and then also just make sure you're having fun and you're finding joy in it as well. Like, I think for me, like, it's so funny, like when I was coming up with the story for Bao, like it was about working through my issues with my mom. But also I was like, man, I'm going to be working on this probably for the next couple of years. So I would rather be, drawing cute dumplings and like delicious foods. Like I wanted to fill the story up with stuff that I was actually excited about, like ideas that I was actually passionate about. So I think that's important too. Yeah.
Love that you shared that. Thank you for sharing your tips. We have our first ever person who's ever won a major award on this. I'm really grateful for that as well. Keep doing amazing things. Keep inspiring people. You don't know who you're inspiring all around the world and how they're inspiring others because of your energy. So I want to thank everyone for that. And you guys, check out Number next week. Pandanomics podcast, uploaded every Wednesday. Ms. Domee, thank you for your time. And guys, we'll talk to you guys soon. Oh, before I forget that, do you want to drop your social media handles so they can follow you?
Oh, yes. So I'm on Instagram at Domee Shi, DOMEESHI. And yeah, I just post doodles, sometimes about bows, sometimes other stuff. That's it.
Thank you guys. We'll talk to you soon.